Mark with High Energy Labs here. I have a very special guest. And by the way, welcome to everyone out there listening. And you are always welcome to list comments below during the show. But I have Dr. Scott Phillips, who's an amazing friend of mine as well. I want to thank him for being on the show. Today we have a very important topic that you guys are going to love and going to relate to. We are going to be talking about stress, the effects of stress, and also we have in the news why stress can be a good thing. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Hey, thanks for being on the show today, Scott.
Good to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So Scott is kind of an expert. I've known Scott for what? How long? About 4 or 5 years?
4 or 5 years, sure.
So Scott has a chiropractic practice up in Heber City. He's amazing. If you guys ever need a chiropractor or need to, what else do you do there besides chiropractic? Because you brought in an assistant or someone else.
It's all about just wellness type services, right? We want to optimize our health, and so the nervous system is where I work. I love chiropractic, but there's definitely some nutrition that can be figured out there. There's some high energy lab products there that can be purchased as well.
We have the Soma Rest that you carry as well as the Multiflex.
Yes, sir.
So that's a joint formula. So those are available there. But let's get into it a little bit about stress. I mean, because you told me the other day, you said I've done some talks on this, presentations and stuff on stress, and what exactly has that encompassed?
Yeah, it's interesting because I always get a little nervous to talk about stress because I feel like people get a little bit
anxious?
Well, they tune it out a little bit, right?
I
I always laugh because I say, if someone says, hey, you need less stress,
it's like,
they're going to get stressed out.
Yeah.
But really, I think the idea is if we can educate people and we can let them know, hey, you know what, like we're going to talk about today, stress and feeling that stress and anxiety is our body's communication mechanism to say, hey, something's not right, something's a little off, we need to change something.
Right.
And so, I've talked to groups of kids and adolescents and adults and all these types of people. And the one thing that everybody has in common is when we say stress, everybody thinks of all their worries.
Yeah.
Right. And so
anger.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Right. We just think. I say, hey, tell me what stresses you out. And most people, I've got 5 kids, 11 years old and younger, and so that's a big stress in my life.
Yeah.
But the first thing we have to do,
as much stress as you make it, or choose
exactly.
to make it, right?
And the first thing we have to do is actually say, it's not the stress that's the problem. People think, oh, it's the kids that's the problem, it's the finances that's the problem. It's really what's going on in our bodies that's the problem,
and in our minds, what we're thinking.
Exactly. And if that physiological response changes and makes it so our body's in that fight or flight mode for too long of a period of time, we see a lot of health issues with that. In fact, the National Institutes of Health has estimated that 90% of disease is actually related to the stress response in our body, which is a really high number. And so first I want people to realize that it's not the stress, it's what's going on in our body, so we can work on that a little bit. Yeah. And then also stress isn't just what worries us, right? We have chemical stresses in what we're eating and what's in our environment.
Like with poor nutrition or toxins.
Taking a bite of something that's not good for us is as big of a stress response in our body as worrying about your mortgage payment. Those are two very similar experiences. Also physical stress. We see a lot of people with poor posture these days, right? My son and I were running this morning and we saw a bus of middle schoolers drive by, and every single one was doing the same thing, and he even noticed that.
Let's get into that and talk about that a little bit later, but a lot of people relate to road rage. They get angry and they're like, other people stress me out, other people make me so mad, or why did they do this? And I like to look at it as a different way of thinking. It's like how you choose to address it.
Right.
And one of my favorite clips in talking about road rage, like I had this friend who had terrible road rage. Like he would lose it. Like he would just be cursing, dropping F-bombs, everything. And his phone would automatically pocket dial his wife sometimes. And he would just be like driving, swearing at people. And he'd come home and she'd be like, Brian, you need to calm down.
You have a problem.
And then she's like, why are you so upset and stressing over road rage? You need to get control over that. And she's like, I really don't appreciate all those F-bombs and stuff, because he would call her and be like, mother effer, God, just like yelling at traffic and stuff. And while, he pocket dialed his wife. But let's take a moment for our media moment right now, because we were both singing this song and getting into this. So we got our media moment. We disappeared there for a minute. So anyways, media moment, yeah! Anyways, let's just roll the clip here. This is one of my favorite clips here from this movie, from Anger Management with Adam Sandler.
Now, what exactly was that
Can
all
we
about,
talk now?
Dave?
What?
You just ran through a red light. Are you trying to get us both killed?
Well, I'm a little flustered right now. I have to be to work in 8 minutes.
Flustered?
Whoa, man! Holy shit! What are you doing?
I need you to unfluster.
My boss is gonna go nuts on me if we're late, so please.
We will proceed when you are centered.
I'm centered. Come on, there's 10,000 people behind us. Let's go, crazy man! What is that? Is that good?
We're going to sing a song.
No. I don't want to sing a song. I want to go to... I gotta go.
Ah, here we go. The magic of Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim's West Side Story.
I feel pretty.
Let's get this thing moving. What the hell's your problem?
Shut your pie hole! We're working here!
Wow, sorry.
Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum, bum.
I feel pretty. Oh, so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay. And I pity any girl who isn't me today.
La 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 la.
This is about over, so you guys probably come back to it.
I feel charming, oh so charming. It's alarming how charming I feel.
Move your ass, dipshit!
And so pretty that I hardly can believe I'm real.
La 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 la. Burn in hell!
See that pretty girl in the mirror there?
What mirror where?
Who could that attractive girl be?
Who, which one, where?
Okay, you can come back to us.
I feel stunning
You feel stunning
and entrancing.
and entrancing.
Feel like running and dancing.
Who's that pretty girl in the mirror there?
What mirror where?
So getting back into stress and talking about that, go back to, like, you were talking about the mindset.
Yeah.
Like we talked a little bit about cell phone usage, because
Right.
I think people put a lot of expectations.
Right.
They look at other people's lives, they see what other people are doing, and it's
Yeah.
like, especially adolescents are like, oh, I need to be doing this, I should be
Right.
there, I should be at this, I should be doing this. And so we put a lot of false expectations on ourselves as well that can cause stress
We're
too.
always looking in the future. What do I need to do to make sure I'm happy? To make sure that I feel. We're always chasing the good,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, a lot of times we're looking at it in places that we're really not going to find it. But like you said, right? We're trying to model ourselves and keep up with the Joneses, and so we feel like we just have to be working all the time. We always have to be moving towards.
Yeah,
it.
a lot of times, Scott, I think it comes down to, my friend Nate Drew had mentioned this in the past. He's like, replace it with a different thought.
Yeah.
So when we have those feelings that are causing anxiety or nervousness or stress or whatever, sometimes it's hard to get out of that mode, because
Right.
because you talked a little bit about this as far as like adrenaline levels, cortisol levels get kicked in, and our cortisol levels go up for that flight mechanism.
Right.
And then what ends up happening is those linger and those chemicals stay in our body, and it's hard to get out of that mode.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, you can replace that with a different thought, but then you're still feeling those emotions and feelings related to the chemicals
Right.
and endorphins, the cortisol, everything else that's been released into our bodies. And it's like, look, just write it out and keep
Yeah.
thinking those good thoughts and get through that. And that's why I think it's also important not to compare our lives to other people, and to teach this to our kids as well. And I've heard everyone's heard this before. Like, if you're stressed and worried, you're like living in the future. You're
Right.
thinking about the future. If you're depressed, you're living in the past. And if you're happy, you're living in the moment,
now.
and you're
Yeah, exactly.
you're enjoying. And that's why I look at it like this is a gift. That's why it's called the present. It's like God has given this gift, and He wants us to live in the moment and experience and be
Right.
present.
Yeah,
So-
no, and I think that's exactly right. And once those hormones get going, that's the thing is we talked about this, and the show is about why stress is a good thing. And really, stress keeps us alive, right? That stress response gets us out of those stressful situations. But if we don't ever turn that off, there's really nothing more degrading, especially from the inside out, that happens in our body. You mentioned cortisol. Cortisol has so many negative things that happens when it's completely built up. One of the ones that I've found recently is actually can damage the hypothalamus, which in the brain. Memory and learning and those kind of things.
I read an article on that, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
And so if
how
we can
it destroys our brain or reprograms our brain.
If we can get cortisol down, that's going to be one of the best things we can do for ourselves for sure. And there's lots of great ways out there. Actually, in my chiropractic practice, we talk about how the chiropractic adjustment will bring cortisol levels down as well. I have a lot of people that'll come in and they're a little bit flustered, and they'll leave feeling a little bit better
because everything gets back in alignment.
Yeah,
and plus,
exactly.
Plus, your practice is kind of like a Zen garden. There's like a little fountain there. It's kind of relaxing. It's not your traditional chiropractic office.
Right.
So usually it's like you go in this room, with the doctor, and it's just you, and you're on this table. Where Scott, it's this big, large, open space area with like natural light that comes in on all the windows.
Yeah.
There's nice music playing. There's also, fountains, and you're also open and exposed. So you have two tables there. It's not like nothing, stressful about it or locked in this, or, as far as being claustrophobic or anything.
Right.
It's all open, and it's this nice, relaxing
I talk in very
environment.
quiet and soft tones.
And you sing sometimes.
Sing. I feel pretty, right?
Yeah. And there's free hugs at the very end, like where they pop and crack your back. So, but anyways, you were talking about like how stress can be a good thing. I came across this like clip in the news that we can play, and I thought it was kind of fascinating. It's a little bit long. It's about 4 minutes, but I think it's a lot of good information. Yeah. And I think you got a chance to look at this. Let's just cue that up and play
definitely.
Because I thought there was some good stuff there. To me, it kind of resonated.
Sure.
One way that the body responds to stress, everyone's heard the fight or flight response, but it actually turns out that that's just one way that the body and brain can respond to a stressful circumstance. And it's often not a very helpful way to respond to a stressful circumstance, especially one in which you really want to rise to the challenge and perform your best, where it's really not about survival mode. And it turns out that the brain and the body actually has another way of responding to these kind of high-stakes challenges, whether it's an important negotiation, or you have to give a speech, or an athletic competition, those moments where you really want to show up and do your best. And that other way of responding to stress is called a challenge response, that it's a way for your brain and body to give you maximum focus, attention, and energy. And it's physically different than the sort of the fight or flight response that we have when we feel deeply threatened by a stressful situation. When you have a threat response, your body and brain are shifting into the state that is really the sort of the classic association with the harmful stress response. It's going to make you more likely to choke under pressure. It's going to feel more like dread or overwhelm. When you have a challenge response, the brain and body actually shift into a state that gives you more access to your resources. Your heart might still be pounding, but your blood vessels are going to relax and open up so you get more blood flow to your muscles and to your brain. Your brain shifts into a state that's actually better at paying attention to everything in your environment rather than sort of being laser focused like you might be in a fight or flight response on what's going wrong or what's dangerous. When you have a challenge response, all of your senses open to all of the information that's available to you, which means you're basically smarter under stress. And researchers have gotten really interested in figuring out how do you get people to shift from a threat response into a challenge response. Because unless your life is on the line in some sort of crazy emergency situation, it's going to be better for you to have a challenge response than a threat response. You'll perform better, and that's been shown in situations ranging from people performing surgery to athletes on the field to students taking difficult exams, that when you have a challenge response, you just do better. And
what happens is what we do is we get caught up in letting that stress response kind of govern our body.
Yeah.
And so where it's easy, let's say an athletic event, or anybody that's felt their, the butterflies in the tummy, let's say you're going to do a performance.
You got to give a talk or
whatever it is, exactly, right? You felt that, and you can use that to your advantage. The things that happen in the stress response, the blood pressure increase, the blood glucose increase to make sure we have sugar for our muscles and things like that. Yeah. All of those things are designed to help us either, deal with that stress and then be done with it, or get away completely. And I think if we know where the stress is coming, we can focus, and then at the end we say, hey, we're done. But the big problems comes in when we're just so overwhelmed that we don't know where it's coming from, right?
And we don't know how to
and we don't know
it.
what to do exactly. Yeah. And so
I
just
think that's where
that's
where people experience anxiety.
Yeah, for sure.
Anxiety attacks. And to me, I think the solution for that is to, number one, replace it with a different thought.
Yeah.
But also recognize and realize, look, this is happening. These cortisol levels are being released. This adrenaline is being released.
Right.
And what I need to do is it will pass, and realize that those thoughts that are happening are not real. I've created those in my mind based off of this circumstance.
Right. Right.
And it's not really real. So, most of the time, like when we have those anxiety or people that have panic attacks, it's like, look, it's not real. It's just created in your mind because you're worrying about what could happen or what's going to happen rather than being in that moment.
Yeah, and all those blood levels are raised, and we got to bring those all down. And so that's, when people talk about stress relieving techniques, that's really what it has to do.
Let's get into like some solutions. I mean, what do you recommend?
It's great. I teach a class at Utah Valley University. It's a health class.
Which one of my sons has
Christian was in my biology class. That's an okay class. The health class, I think, is a better class for me.
And what's the other one called?
The other one's biology.
Okay.
But in the health class, we do a section on stress relieving techniques, and I actually have all the students do a week worth of very time efficient stress relieving techniques. And they pick one, takes them less than 2 minutes a day, and I have them do it throughout the week and then write a report after. And as a professor, I know that kids are going to try to write reports trying to be favorable about the assignment because they want good grades.
So what are some of the techniques?
So the easiest one is deep breathing. We've known this for so long that when we start to feel that stress, and again, if it's for a purpose.
We start having technical difficulties on the show.
If there's technical...
breathe in,
That's
out.
Right.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, and so you can take these big deep breaths. What happens when we're stressed is our breathing becomes more shallow and shorter.
Yeah.
And so as we breathe in deeply and breathe out, we actually turn off that stress response. And so it can be really, really effective, especially in the short term, if there's something that just
the mind controls
us.
that. And it's
like,
look, it's over. Let it go.
Exactly.
And you still have to write out that cortisol and adrenaline.
The second one that I like is actually it's keeping a gratitude journal.
I like that one.
And I had a guy on a radio show that I was doing for a while, and he talked about the changes that he saw in his life, and I've seen this in my students also. Right. Is at the end of the day, you'll sit down with a pen and paper or an iPhone if you want to keep getting physically stressed in here. Sure. Anyway, but you'll write down 3 good things that you were thankful for that day, right? And it's very easy if you really think about it. I was glad for a blue sky this morning, those types of things. And but what he said was the mind shift changed when he started to look for those things throughout the day.
Yeah, because then you're focusing on the positive rather than the negative, and you're taking accountability rather than playing this victim.
Right,
as well.
And so you'll start to see how many good things, even in a quote unquote bad day. You'll see how many good things really did take place, and you start to focus on those. And then he said the next step was you start to look for them and anticipate them. And once you anticipate those things happening, you see a lot of difference. And he said that was the key from changing him into this kind of grumpy, stressed out individual to someone now that's very, happy and relaxed. And so that's my second. I think that one, again, doesn't take very long, very effective, and can change your complete, outlook on the stresses of the day-to-day life.
I like those those solutions.
Those are my favorite too. And like I say, these students, I tell them at the beginning, I say, please, this is like almost research for me. Like, be very honest in what it does for your life. And I have not had one turn one in yet that say it was a waste of time and they didn't notice any differences. Right. And so if you can do that even for a week or two, and put it to the test, I would challenge anybody out there right now that if they wanted to try that out and see if it makes a difference.
Awesome. If we have any questions, feel free to leave comments. If not, on the live section of our show, leave comments, and Dr. Phillips or I will try to answer those. Dr. Phillips, more of a professional, so I'll leave the more technical questions, to him if you guys have any questions related to stress or anxiety or anything like that. So, anything else that you want to add?
It can be a really scary thing. I think most people in this day and age, in fact, the national average on a scale of 1 to 10, most people are rating themselves at about a 7 on how stressed they are in general.
Wow.
And so the almost knee-jerk reaction can be just to kind of ignore it. But I just want people to know there are things going on in your stressed out body that will provide a worse life expectancy and a worse life quality. And there are easy things
that leads to other diseases.
Yeah, there are
problems.
easy things you can do to take care of it. And so for sure, if you're watching this video and you have any questions or you're just wondering how can I even start, there are some really easy ways that are very, very effective.
Another thing that I found effective in dealing with stress is exercise.
For sure.
So exercise is one of those top things. And one of the biggest concerns nationally I read this on a report, as far as what people are stressed about, the number one thing is like finances.
Yeah, that's usually number one.
I think that was like 68% of people are dealing with financial stress on some level or not, because you mentioned, where's my next mortgage going to come from?
I always love that, though, because I think, some of the, I laugh and say, the happiest people are the most wealthy, which just isn't true.
No, that's not true. And I think really what it comes down to, we've talked about this on another show, where that income level is like, once you hit that $70,000 level, like you got all your mortgage, you got everything kind of accounted for.
Right.
Any additional income on top of that, they've done research on this, and it doesn't make you any more happy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm willing to give it a try.
I would give it a shot too, for sure.
But I think that's kind of fascinating about the research. But one thing I want to give a plug to Dr. Phillips. So let's pull up his logo there. This is for Lifestyle Chiropractic up in Heber. Here. And then we have one thing I wanted to do. You can come back to us. Is I wanted to give a plug because Dr. Phillips sells a couple products that do really well for his patients. One is the Multiflex, which is the joint product, and a lot of people have joint issues, and so that product's available. And then the sleep product. That's another thing that we didn't really dive into as far as stress. Like if you're not sleeping well, that causes all sorts of problems. Not only our human growth hormone, which allows our bodies to repair, rebuild, and restore. If we're not sleeping well, our bodies aren't releasing the right hormones, and we're not, repairing, and our bodies are continually breaking down, and that leads to other diseases. It leads to stress. It can lead to anxiety, all sorts of other problems and issues as well. So, matter of fact, I brought in a bottle here for someone in the studio here.
There it is.
That's the Somarest product. You can pick that up there. And what I wanted to do is for a special on the sleep product today, well, actually for the next rest of the week, if you go to highenergylabs.com and enter in the code SLEEP, all in caps, that'll give you 25% off of your entire order on any of the products, as well as the Somarest products.
Yeah, if you want to know how stressed you are, see how good your sleep is.
Yeah, exactly. So that product works really well. I don't know if you've taken that.
Yeah, we've used it at home. I've used it with patients too. They really like it. So.
Awesome. So it doesn't make you groggy the next day. It allows you to recover. It kind of relaxes you, puts you to sleep. You stay asleep, and you're not waking up, and then you're not groggy the next day like you are on a lot of those over-the-counter things like Tylenol PM or prescription drugs, things like that. So just a plug for that. And I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in and for watching.
Both times.
Apologize for the technical difficulties. And but you'll just have to watch this in 2 parts. Realize that there's 2 parts to it when you go on Facebook, and we'll try to post the whole thing up there full on YouTube. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being on the show, Scott.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
Great stuff. I appreciate all that.
Yeah, thank you.
So.